Chris's Comics Corner.
So, Chris, what classic comic book are you going to be looking at today?
Thanks, Prof. Looking at Amazing Spider-Man, number 22, Volume 1, going way back to March of 1965 with a cover date, written by Stan Lee, art done by Steve Ditko, and lettered by Artie Simek. Okay, now in this one, we've got Spider-Man. He finds out that the Ringmaster and his Circus of Crime have been paroled. So Spider-Man's going to say, hey, don't try anything, I'm on to you. He goes up to the Ringmaster, takes his Ringmaster's hat, and puts a Spidey tracker on it. But the gang is disenchanted with the Ringmaster as the leader. They continually get busted. So you know what? They're going to hire the clown, one of their own, to be the new leader of the gang. And they kick out the Ringmaster. What is this? Dissension among the ranks. You hardly see that among villainous groups from back in the day. Meanwhile, Peter Parker has his typical high school drama going on. He turns down a walk with the lovely Liz Allen and catches up with Betty Brant and goes for a walk that way. Meanwhile, Jonah Jameson decides he's going to put his stature out there, so he's going to put a priceless art collection on display with respect to that. That proves to be a tempting target for the Circus of Crime, who decides that they want to strike and go after it. Well, they do such that, and they do steal some of the respected artwork with respect to this. Peter can't do much in his civilian clothes, and during the fight and skirmish, Jonah Jameson gets knocked out. Ouch. Okay. Well, he gets his comeuppance. So with respect to that, Spider-Man, of course, does able to find the gang's hideout. By doing so, he hypnotizes the Ringmaster with his own hat. Go figure. Love it. So once he finds the hideout, the battle ensues as perfectly rendered as Steve Ditko can, along with some really bombastic angles, some real nice fluidity with respect to the artwork. And just when you think the gang is going to lose the fight, Princess Python uses her feminine wiles to try to subdue Spider-Man, sort of take him out of the game a little bit. And it's really interesting because in Spider-Man's Rogue Gallery, you never really saw a female villain before. In fact, I can't think of too many off the top of my head. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the very first time that Spider-Man was sort of dumbfounded with respect to somebody who's a female and a crook. The feminine charms don't quite work, unfortunately, but not before Princess Python just manages to unmask Spider-Man, but she only gets up to the chin before Spider-Man recoils and is able to mask himself. But suddenly he's trapped in a room with a giant python, but using his fluidity and agility, he manages to put the python in a knot. Everything is sort of all's well that ends well. The Ringmaster takes down the clown, but he gets nailed by the cops himself. Jonah Jameson recovers. Peter Parker takes pictures that J. Jonah needs for the Daily Bugle. But before there could be any happiness for Peter Parker, by the time he gets home, Aunt May is waiting for him, staying up late, and she scolds him for being out way too late. The end. Oh, I gotta say. Well, Chris, this sounds like an atypical issue of The Amazing Spider-Man from way back in the day. So what kind of drew you to this one? Well, I tell you, I really, really dug the Ditko drawn Spider-Man stories from back in the day when I was a kid, but there was really no format to get these books or have access to them like you do now. There were no collection of omnibuses. Paperbacks didn't collect the stories. You could maybe find the reprints in Marvel Tales, which I was chewing up just as rapidly as I was The Amazing Spider-Man with the regular ongoing from back in the day. They were just so hard to find with respect to the areas of the Midwest I lived in, be it in finding back issues in Detroit or Memphis, Tennessee. You never really saw too many issues of back Amazing Spider-Man that were, say, numbered under 40. They just weren't around. And I just kept on looking for the Ditko books, and they were just really, really so hard to find. But what drew me to this one, when I stopped at a local comic shop called the Nostalgia Shop in Memphis, Tennessee, long since defunct, and it was the very first comic shop I went to, they had the first edition of the Marvel Comics Index, which looked at The Amazing Spider-Man, which was compiled by George Olszewski. Now, some people may be familiar with these. These were like a big, nice, thick magazine format with cover reproductions, and it basically reproduced every cover of Amazing Spider-Man up until that point in black and white. And when I saw the cover of Amazing Spider-Man number 22, that drew me in, and I said to myself, man, I don't think I'll ever get maybe some earlier issues, but that's going to be one of my grail books. I really want this book, and I was really enticed by the cover. And why, you may ask? You don't see Spider-Man on the cover of this one. What you do see is the spider signal that emits from his belt, shining a beam on the floor, which is surrounded by the crooks, the clown, the Gambinos, the acrobats, Princess Python, and the human Cannonball himself. And you see the shadow of Spider-Man cast upon the wall, and you see the spider signal, but there's no Spider-Man. And I thought Ditko really did a masterful job of doing a compelling cover of this, which I first saw in the mid-'70s. And I would not find that book, looking for it year upon year after year, but it finally paid off when I hit a Minneapolis comic convention in the spring of 1981. I did see a copy of this, and I saw it for a reasonable price, and then I was able to scratch that off my list. And looking back, I think I've waited for books to get a quote-unquote grail book longer for my personal collection than this at 5 years. But I tell you, as a little one back in the day when I was still in single digits, waiting to find a book at a particular show or con for what would we be about, maybe about 5.5 years. That was a lifetime for a kid back then to try to find a grail book. So that is one of the reasons I personally chose this one. So those are my thoughts and impressions on The Amazing Spider-Man, number 22.
Nice. So that was Chris's Comics Corner.
Chris's Comics Corner.